Everybody to the SUNY Global Center. I'd like to spend just a couple minutes welcoming you. I think the Secretary General is on his way. I think he may be just a couple blocks away. I'd like to welcome you all here today for this important event. You're in the SUNY Global Center. This is the headquarters for the State University of New York's global operations. Many of you may be aware, we're the largest comprehensive university system in the U.S. with about 500,000 students and 64 campuses. But this center is used mainly for convening events like this. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Global Affairs at SUNY. I'm also the Senior Advisor on Academic Affairs to the UN Global Compact. So this has a special meaning for me, and I'm really proud that we can host this for a second year in this building. We've been working for the last year with a working group of universities from around the world to adapt the Global Compact principles, the framework for institutions so that they can adopt it, as do companies, and internalize the same kind of operational principles and corporate social responsibility and sustainability into their business operations, as do businesses. Well, you'd be surprised, given the fact that universities consider their mission fundamentally social, that they haven't necessarily thought as deliberately about these things in their matters related to their global operations as many companies have. But we're trying to change that. So that's happening now here. I'm told that the Secretary General is just a short distance away. And I don't have many more comments to make. We're waiting for Jörg Kell to come down with him. So if you'll all just stand by, I'll be here soon. Thank you very much.
It's yours. Yeah.
Very inconsiderate. It's that woman right there.
Oh, that's the one who's too far.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everybody. It's a very cold morning, but a wonderful day. This is the second meeting after the launch of the Women's Empowerment Principles by the Secretary General. We're here today to take stock, to look into the future, and to see how we can grow this movement into a truly transformative force, especially in the run-up to Rio. My name is Georg Kell. I'm very happy with the Global Compact, together with UN Women, to support the Women's Empowerment Principles. And we are very proud about the progress that has been made in such a short period of time. The number of companies involved has doubled just in 1 year. Since the Secretary General launched the principles, not only has he created a department for women and appointed Madame Michelle Bachelet, we are so happy to have her here, we are moving with the Women's Empowerment Principles on a very large scale forward. And today, hopefully, we will give it the necessary push to prepare for future growth, to make it truly, truly transformative. Without further ado, it is my great privilege to welcome you all and to welcome the Secretary General and to ask him kindly to give us an introduction. Thank you very much, Secretary General.
Thank you, Georg Kell. It's a great pleasure to see you. Madame Michelle Bachelet, Executive Director, UN Women, Madam Gula Sabanci, Chairman and Managing Director, Sabanci Holding, Mr. Joseph Kiff, Chief Executive Officer, Pax World Management, distinguished guests, women leaders, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to see you again. I was here last year, and coming to this place, I was hoping, I wish every day were like these days. With all this commission on the status of women meeting going on in New York, I'm surrounded, I'm meeting so many distinguished women leaders from all around the world. And I see this world is full of distinguished women. While we are talking about the women's status, these are all very empowered women. But in reality, it's not so. It seems to be a special occasion when we meet so many distinguished women leaders like today. So I was wishing that every day were like these days. But we are working toward that direction. And thank you very much for your commitment and leadership. I think your leadership really counts. I hope we work together. There are so many distinguished leaders committed to improve gender equality and gender empowerment, including myself and, of course, our UN Women, Michelle Bachelet, and all of you are among them. I'm particularly excited to see women's empowerment and gender equality being discussed in the context of sustainable business. Empowerment and sustainable development have been top priorities for my job as a Secretary General since day one, and it's going to be same during my second term as a Secretary General. This is a big year for both. In just over 100 days, the UN Conference on Sustainable Development will open in Rio de Janeiro. And this will be once-in-a-generational opportunities, which we must make it a success, including gender empowerment. The private sector contributions will be crucial. We cannot achieve sustainable development without buy-in from business, from leading global corporations to small and medium-sized enterprises, from investors to entrepreneurs. Nor can we achieve sustainability at a corporate or global level without empowering world's women. In this context, I'd like to briefly mention 3 United Nations initiatives that are underpinned by the link between sustainability and gender equality. First, women's empowerment principles. This event marks the 2nd anniversary of the launch of this innovative partnership, which brings together the United Nations Global Compact and is a global network of businesses and the United Nations UN Women with its expertise in championing gender equality. Second, Every Woman, Every Child initiative. Healthy women and children make healthy societies, healthy country, and a sound foundation for sustainable prosperity for men, women, and children, for everybody. We are focusing a lot on every woman, every child, and this is one of the most successful partnerships which we have been experienced in the United Nations. Third, sustainable energy for all. Again, energy is cross-cutting issue in all the issues which we are really working hard to promote and realize. This will provide opportunities for empowerment and prosperity to the world's poor, including women. After all, it's women again, without energy. They are the ones who are suffering. We have a very ambitious agenda for this sustainable energy for all. We have set a deadline by 2030. By that time, we have to provide decent access to energy to all the people in the world. We have welcomed 7 billionth citizen last year, October last year. By 2030, it may be around 8 billion people. Even though it may be a little bit ambitious, I think it is doable, it's achievable if we do now, if we start now. And we will also double the energy efficiency and double this renewable energy in global energy mix. Those are very important initiatives. These are three issues. Each is built on vibrant partnership between the United Nations and private sector. And I urge you to support them. Ultimately, women's empowerment yields a strong economic return for all. I believe that among so many resources in our world, women are the least utilized resources. Just less than 50% have been and are now being utilized. That if we use remaining 50% or even 60% of resources which we have, talents, then we can accelerate at double the speed of Millennium Development Goals and many other issues United Nations is promoting to achieve. We must do more to remove barriers women face to participating fully in the economy. There are high walls still, visible or invisible, seen or unseen. People say that is glass wall, glass tower. Glass looks transparent. When you approach, you cannot go through. There's a lot, very high glass barriers. Lack of access to jobs, markets, credit, and property. The meaningful participation of women in business, from the inclusion of women-owned businesses in supply chains to having sufficient representation of women corporate boards, also translates into stronger performance. I'm working very hard these days to increase the women participation in decision-making process in the government and parliament, particularly parliament. There are 9 countries in the world where not a single woman is in the National Assembly, parliaments. I'm just confronting all these 9 leaders, one by one. And I think I'm making a lot of progress. At least the 50% I have made the progress. So I'm attacking all these remaining countries. The meaningful participation of women in business, from the inclusion of women-owned businesses, and all these are very important. Decision-making. There are many women who are working in a non-decision-making mechanisms, departments. But when women are sitting in the line department where they can make decisions, I'm sure that there will be more employment of women. That's what I have done in the United Nations. When I was appointing senior women, there were no women to be considered as candidates. Then the best way is to have somebody from outside who are already accomplished, like former President Michelle Bachelet. We could have somebody from within the United Nations, but we need a leadership. And even that is applied even mid-career. There are not many women. Then why is it so? Because all the selection committee members are men. So they normally give a good credit to a man. So these days, always there are half of women selection committee members. Because we have now quite a number of senior women sitting in the boardrooms together with me. It's time of global economic uncertainty. Everybody agrees, everybody is suffering, but we cannot ignore this opportunity. At the corporate level, companies must recognize that women's empowerment is not a human resources problem. Do not isolate the issue in this way. I urge you to apply a gender lens to all your company's activities and sustainability efforts. Recognize that each is an opportunity not just to support women's empowerment, but to strengthen your operations. The women's empowerment principles provide guidance on how to do this. Almost 400 companies have now signed the CEO statement of support for the 7 principles. Many companies are taking concrete steps to implement them. The women's empowerment principles have inspired initiatives such as due maternity leave policies, compensation equalization measures, and entrepreneurship training programs for women in poor rural areas. Each of these has a real impact on the lives of women and in turn on the contribution they can make to society. And the businesses that are embracing the women's empowerment principles are finding that investing in women is good economics. As one recent signatory said, this is a strategic business issue. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made some progress, but there's still a long way to go. I applaud those of you whose companies support women's empowerment principles. But I also challenge you to take women's empowerment to the next level in your companies and in your sphere of influence. Champion the principle, challenge your peers to take the course. Share your success stories. Keep questioning the status quo and pushing the boundaries. The status quo, business as usual, is the most serious issues which you have always guarded against. Ladies and gentlemen, together we can empower women to contribute to and benefit equally from a sustainable future. I look forward to seeing all of you in Rio de Janeiro and working with you there in the years ahead to achieve our common goals to make this world better for all, men and women, and for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Secretary General. You have given us a tall order. Under your leadership, we are challenged to move forward, and we will do so. I have now the pleasure to invite Madame Bachelet. She needs no introduction. I think we're all great fans of her, and we all want to support her in her great efforts to build up the women's empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Mr. Secretary General. Excellencies, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is really my pleasure, well, it should say ladies and gentlemen, because still gender equality, it looks like it's a ladies issue because the majority are women here. But there will be a day when I hope we'll be also 50-50 working on these issues. Well, it is my pleasure really to join all of you at this meeting on gender equality for sustainable development. Amidst all the challenges and opportunities in our world today, one fact is unassailable. Countries and companies with higher gender equality enjoy higher levels of growth and performance. And the growth is more inclusive, and of course that benefits all of us. It is great that we are all here today for this meeting on gender equality for sustainable business. This is a prelude to considerations that will be discussed, as the Secretary General already mentioned, at the upcoming Rio+20, the UN Conference on Sustainable Development to be held in June. And I like our theme today, equality means business. I also like to turn it around to business means equality. That is the idea that many of you are taking forward, and rightly so. Because, as I used to say, it's not only the right thing to do, but the smart thing to do. Opening opportunities to women in business and all sectors of society is strategic for the long term, for equity, for growth, and of course, for sustainability. In the 2 years since the launch of the Women's Empowerment Principles, the initiative has grown globally, taken root at the national level, and become a touchstone within a leadership group of companies. The Women's Empowerment Principle, a partnership of UN Women at the beginning UNIFEM, former UNIFEM, and the UN Global Compact offer a platform for business to drive purposefully the advancement of women in the workplace, but also in the marketplace and in the community. And we specify these three areas deliberately as each, and all of them are necessary to build healthy economies, strong societies, and sustainable development. The 7 principles provide a map for companies to integrate gender equality throughout their enterprises. A company's interest and influence do not stop at its front door, but extend along the supply chain and into the communities where employees come and go every day. At Rio+20, world leaders, business and civil society will face up to the challenge of reaching an agreement for the future. An agreement to advance the social, economic, and environment pillars of sustainability. And advancing gender equality is absolutely fundamental to this global effort. When women are empowered and earn an income, they invest back into their families and communities. Studies show it's 90%. They invest in health, education, food security. This drives hunger, poverty, and malnutrition down and improves standards of health, education, and well-being. And this is good for all of us. Business can bring so much to this effort, and like all involved, stands to lose dramatically if we fail. My top priority as UN Women this year are increasing women's empowerment, economic empowerment, and political participation and leadership. And I'm glad to see that advancing women's leadership is the first of the women's empowerment principles. And companies are taking this forward in so many ways. Some are setting gender diversity targets to increase representation of women at management levels and establish equal pay agreements. Others are advocating equal representation of women on boards of directors. Still more are investing in local activities to support girls' education in science and technology. One business designed and conducted an economic empowerment program for acid attack survivors. For those of you who do not know, these crimes are usually targeted at women and girls. The offenders throw acid at their victims with the intent to injure and permanently disfigure them. And this company is responding by providing ICT training for 100 women survivors so they can work in call centers, restoring their dignity and place in their communities. Another way that companies are advancing women's empowerment is by connecting women entrepreneurs to finance so they can grow their business. In Haiti, artisans are making products from sustainable materials that meet international quality standards and selling them on the international market. Involving over 900 craftspeople, the enterprise supports 15,000 others. Transparency and accountability are UN Women's core values and constitute the last of the 7 women's empowerment principles. Knowing that, and I will quote, if it isn't measured, it isn't managed, this year the partnership is announcing a special reporting tool for business that is tailored for each of the principles and was developed with the pro bono assistance from a supporting company. It is our responsibility to constituents and stakeholders to report back. So I hope that at next year's meeting, we will be reviewing the first lessons from these reports and taking the necessary actions. In closing, I would like to thank companies whose business means equality. I urge companies to get involved and to report back. Gender equality is essential for growth that is inclusive and also sustainable. So together we can make social inclusion and equity hallmarks of the Rio+20 UN Conference on Sustainable Development. So thank you very much for all what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And we just got the breaking news that number 400 company has joined the Women's Empowerment Principles. We made some major inroads in Japan. 20 companies there joined. It's a wonderful, Michelle, we will be with you, the Secretary General for Rio, Women Empowerment. We will make it a transformative movement. Thank you very much. We have now the third speaker on our opening high-level panel, Madame Sabanci. She also needs no introduction, one of the most renowned business leaders in the world, truly in the world, a pioneer in so many regards, and allow me to add an early supporter of the compact as well. Madame Sabanci, please.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Secretary General, Undersecretary Madame Bachelet, Ambassador Apakan, Ambassador Vivienne, and Gregory Kell, and distinguished guests and esteemed colleagues. Yes, it is a great morning. I agree with the Secretary General. It is a great morning. I feel privileged, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you, all of you today. It's a beautiful day also. It's a sunny day. So the spring is starting, and we have all this positive energy in this room. All my life practically, I have been addressing the issue of gender equality. I was raised in a high male-dominant family, but they were very progressive. I was very lucky throughout my life. All through my education, all through my professional life, I have had the full support of my family. But I know that, however, this was not fully reflected reality of my country, of course. So knowing that reality, I have always felt an extra level of responsibility because of this, and have been advocate of the advancement of women in all walks of life. This is why, as Sabancı, we have been at the forefront of the gender equality movement because we have championed the cause not just for our own sake, but for the sake of our country. Since 2006, we have increased the amount of women executives in my company from 23% to 28% in 2011. Total 34% of all the employees are women in my company. In insurance, it is 64%, just insurance business that we have. In banking, it is 51%. All these numbers are significantly above the national average, but still it's not enough. As our country's female employment has always been comparatively higher in the services sector, and lately I am very encouraged, I'm seeing serious improvements in the more traditional industries like cement and like tires, which I have started from. But still, as I said, it's not enough. This is a long journey which requires continuous effort, and you are all here to put this effort, this is why, as a company, we were the first ones to sign the Women's Empowerment Principles as Sabancı. This is a true commitment that we wanted to show on this cause, and to show our commitment on the gender equality in the workplace. As Secretary General has rightly said, this brought a gender lens in the company. And these principles have laid out the foundation of the empowering woman. It is simple, but it makes life easier to communicate. And it enables an environment in the company, and it is critical to engage the leadership team and to secure their ownership, because this is something you cannot do only by the chairman or the CEO wants you to do. You have to create an enabling environment for all this to make it better and to have improvement on these issues. And in every sense, in every opportunity I have, I try to emphasize these principles. But as I said, this is not enough. It has to be owned by the leadership team. In fact, in my last leadership conference in the company, I have specifically asked them to bring suggestions on how to specific action plans so that to improve and to promote the women's empowerment principles in each organization. Now, I think they will be ready in a few months, and then we will get all together, the whole leadership team in the company, and we will specifically listen to these specific action plans all together. Starting next year onwards, we will be having these efforts in the KPIs of the leadership team. So that would be, we didn't want to put them this year because we want them to get ready to prepare themselves. And then next year onwards, it will be in their KPIs. So the leadership team can follow up their progress. As I said, it's the ownership and the commitment is crucial for the success of the initiative. The leadership has to own the whole thing. But it is not difficult to convince the leadership team. As Madame Bachelet has rightly said, it is a smart business idea to do this. It is a benefit to all of us. It's a benefit to the leadership team also. It just makes good business sense to have more women in the workplace. Women represent half of the talent pool. And studies have shown that they bring in the critical leadership skills that we all know, like multitasking and more creative ideas. Providing equal opportunities based on merit. This is, I think, very important. It has to be based on merit in order to be sustainable. In order to be sustainable, it has to be based on merit. Both for women and men in the companies, it brings you a bigger, you choose from a bigger pool. So it is already makes more sense from the beginning. And as I said, gender diversity in organizations leads to higher performing teams. It's already measurable, and we see better business results, as Madame Bachelet has said. So the diversity, in turn, fuels innovation-led growth. And sustainability in business, we all know, that can only be achieved through innovation. So the gender equality is not a burden. It is a blessing for the companies. It is a blessing for the leadership team. And fostering equal opportunity in the workplace to the business leaders its own benefit. Distinguished guests, I would like to share with you also in women's empowerment, it is also an important part of my company's social responsibility platform. Since 2006, we have had a joint program to promote and protect human rights of women and girls, which involves all of the United Nations agencies, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Sabancı Foundation, and the Sabancı University. The joint program offers a platform where UN organizations, local governments, public institutions, non-governmental organizations, and private sector institutions can work together towards a long-lasting result and gender equality and women's empowerment issues. The program was the first of its kind. Of course, as you may have guessed, the greatest challenge of a program of such is working all these different institutions and all these different stakeholders working together. It's not an easy task to achieve, but once you achieve these different stakeholders, public, private, non-profit sectors working together, this is the greatest asset of the program. It is a challenge, but that is the asset. The partnership with all stakeholders is the key for a social impact. You can't do with one or the other. It has to be a joint program. It has to be a partnership effort. And as such, Sabancı Foundation will be continuing, as with Madame Bachelet knows the details, a joint program for the second phase now. We are going in partnership with UNDP, UN Women, the Ministry of Family and Social Policy, and the Ministry of Interior Affairs. So we are enlarging the partnership in the second phase, going to additional, in the first phase it was 6 cities we focused. Now we're going to additional 10 cities in Turkey. We all know that the issue of gender equity remains a challenge across the world. In every aspect of the society, in every issue, whenever the issue is women, I say it is never enough. We have a lot of work to do, and we are late already. So I feel great to be here today to see, and I am very hopeful to be with all of you today. And I hope that today's meeting will be a fruitful one, and wish you all success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madame Sabancı, for your leadership, for your future-oriented action plan. The Secretary General is on a very tight schedule. Is it all right? We are 5 minutes behind schedule. Is that absorbable? Thank you, Secretary General, because we are unfortunately 5 minutes. Our closing speaker for the opening panel to set the tone for today's discussion is Joseph Kiwi, and he is a founder and a supporter of the business case of why we are here. We owe much to you because you have brought the investor's perspective to this issue, and the work you have been doing has empowered all of us to make the business case. Joseph, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, Madam Bachelet. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, ambassadors, distinguished guests. I was pleased to be one of the first CEOs in the world to endorse the Women's Empowerment Principles, and I've been involved with the principles for many years now. And I remember several years ago reading a book called The Wealth and Poverty of Nations, and the book is about why some nations are rich and some nations are poor, written by an historian by the name of David Landis. I remember being struck by a statement he made in that book. He said, the best clue to a nation's growth and development potential is the status and role of women. And as the speakers have said, the United Nations understands that. The international development community now understands that. The World Bank, the IFC, the NGOs, that the best way to lift nations out of poverty is to invest in women and girls. But it turns out that the status and role of women is not only the best clue to a nation's growth and development potential, to a country's growth and development potential, the status and role of women is also an excellent clue to a company's growth potential. That is to say, those companies, and there is now overwhelming research backing up to this point, those companies that advance and empower women have better governance and better long-term financial performance. And if that is the case, then we need to begin to invest in those companies. If they're better investments, we should be looking for those companies as investments, and we should begin to see gender equality as an investment concept. At my company, Pax World, we manage mutual funds, and we try to do that. We apply a gender lens in all of our funds, meaning that before we will invest in any company, in any of our funds, we look at how that company treats women. Are there women on its board? Are there women in senior management? What kind of policies do they have to attract and recruit and promote and empower and advance women? And then in one fund in particular, what we call the Pax World Global Women's Equality Fund, we have a mutual fund that is the only fund in America whose sole focus is investing on companies around the world that are global leaders in promoting gender equality and women's empowerment. And right in the prospectus for that fund that is filed with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, we say we particularly favor companies that have endorsed and taken proactive steps to implement the women's empowerment principles. And I have personally written a letter to the CEO of every single company held in that fund, urging them to endorse and take steps, proactive steps, to implement the women's empowerment principles. When we vote our proxies, we do not support any board of directors of any corporation in any of our funds that does not have women on its director slates. And in fact, we will usually not support a full board unless it has at least 2 women on its board, because we don't think tokenism is enough. And we are striving to practice what we preach. At Pax World, half of the funds we manage in-house, 3 out of our 6 funds, are managed by women. 3 out of the 6 senior vice presidents who sit on the firm's management committee with me are women. Half of our sustainability analysts are women. Half of our wholesalers, and if you've ever seen an old boys network, it's mutual fund wholesaling. Half of them are women. How did we get there? We simply insist that in every finalist pool, for every job, that women be in the finalist pool. And then we simply hire the best person. Let the chips fall where they may. And lo and behold, 50% here, 50% there, 50% there. So I'm tired of hearing that it's a pipeline problem. I'm tired of hearing that there's an insufficient supply of qualified women for these board posts. It's a demand problem, not a supply problem. And we have to demand change. CEOs, investors have to demand change. And again, the business case for this is compelling. There is now overwhelming research backing up this point. And we also report on our pay equity efforts at Pax World. And we've made great strides. And again, we report publicly through the communication on progress of the UN Global Compact. Another way that the United Nations, is providing a framework for the private sector to make progress on gender equality issues. I think it's great what the UN is doing in working with the private sector. The private sector, I believe, can be a catalyst for change. The enlightened, sustainable businesses can play a critical role in making gender equality a reality. The women's empowerment principles give us a framework to do that, and at Pax World, we are actively using that framework. I'm convinced that should a critical mass of companies around the globe endorse and take proactive steps to implement the women's empowerment principles, the cause of gender equality will be immeasurably advanced, and the timetable for achieving genuine progress will be greatly accelerated. Thank you very much.
We will bring your leadership to the investors community, and we want to win over all of the 900 supporters of PRI to follow your examples on the investor side. Secretary General, this concludes the opening session. There's a whole day of hard work ahead of us. You want to say a sentence or two to the participants before we leave? Because they have much heavy lifting to do, these people, to bring the women's empowerment principles to the next level. So your support is really, really appreciated, Secretary General.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply impressed by what all our distinguished speakers have said. Normally, I'm not the one who is engaged in business practices, but as Mr. Keefe said, I'll try to do what I preach other people. That's what I say, lead by example. I'd like to really hope that particularly the CEOs, male CEOs, when you run these big companies, try to lead by example. I think this is a very good policy. This is exactly what I have been doing. Just to bring at least one woman's name in the short list, final list. It's been that whoever number 1, 2, 3 names, mostly men. So I've been thinking strange. Wasn't there any woman? There were many women candidates, but they all failed. They were not successful. Then I had to take among 3, 1 man, all the times. I thought by doing that, I couldn't change. So I need to have some political will. So sometimes the political will changes, make difference. So I said, make it sure that 1 woman's name is there among 3. Then they continued. So wasn't there any woman still? They all failed. They were not successful. Okay, then who are the best among unsuccessful ladies? Unsuccessful. Bring that woman's name. Then I chose. And after continuing 2-3 times, when I chose a woman who was not successful in interview or selection process, then people understood, oh, this seems to be not joke. He seems to be very serious. These days, there is no exception. There is no exception. Always, a woman's name is always there. So that, by doing that, I was able to change minimum 40 to 60% of increase in just 3 years. And now this is a 6th year, but during 5 years' time, in average, I think I have raised the level of number of women senior advisors in the United Nations top echelon, minimum 40, 45, depending upon the rank. For a highest level rank, I raised it by 60%. Under Secretary General. And now Secretary General, 1. There is 1 Deputy Secretary General, 1. Then highest, I think, Under Secretary General, as Madam Bachelet is. That number has increased by 60%. Then another lower rank by 40%. Altogether, almost 50%. That's what I have been doing. I will continue to do that. By doing that, I was able to change. Then I have something to say to other world leaders and CEOs. Look, I have been doing this way. You have to lead by example to be more convincing. You can convince other people. So I really count on your strong commitment. My always motto is to make this world better for all. Whether men or women, whether you are poor or rich, or you are powerful or not powerful persons, but this world should be a place where everybody should be treated equal and should be given equal dignity. That's our future. And let us work together to shape our future as we want. Thank you very much for this.
I think this concludes the opening segment, and all the best for the rest of the day. We have much work to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.